Pay attention to this home security footage from a kitchen in suburban Atlanta, Georgia. It's 3:47 p.m. on a Tuesday afternoon. You're watching a teenage girl walk through her kitchen. She's just home from school. Everything looks normal, a typical day in a typical suburban home. But watch her left hand. See how she's holding something behind her back? Watch how she positions her body so the object stays hidden from the camera. That's a gun, a loaded .357 Magnum. And she's walking toward her bedroom where her mother is waiting to confront her about a box of marijuana vapes that was just discovered. In less than 30 seconds, 3 gunshots will ring out. And this seemingly normal teenage girl will calmly walk back into that kitchen, sit down on a stool, and start texting her friends about what she just did. This is the story of a secret life exposed, and the deadly lengths one teenager went to in order to keep it hidden. You know that moment as a parent when you discover your kid has been lying to you? Maybe you find cigarettes in their room, or you realize they've been sneaking out at night. It's a betrayal, sure, but it's also just part of growing up, part of being a teenager testing boundaries. For Rebecca Davis, a 38-year-old math teacher living in suburban Atlanta, Georgia, that moment came on March 24, 2018. She'd just gotten home from teaching and discovered a box in her 15-year-old daughter's bedroom. A box filled with vape pens containing THC. Rebecca was shocked. Her daughter Madison had always been a good student, polite, well-behaved. This discovery meant Madison had been lying to her, buying drugs, hiding them, living a secret life. Rebecca planned to confront Madison when she got home from school that afternoon. Have a serious conversation about choices and consequences. Ground her. Maybe get her into counseling. What Rebecca didn't know was that Madison's secret life went far deeper than vape pens, and Madison wasn't going to let anyone expose it. This is the story of a teenager who seemed perfect on the outside, but was hiding a darkness no one saw coming. A story about the double life of an honors student who was cheating, cutting, and spiraling out of control, and about the moment when that carefully constructed facade came crashing down with deadly consequences. Let me take you back to early 2018 to understand who Madison Davis appeared to be. On the surface, Madison was every parent's dream kid. She was 15, a sophomore at one of the best high schools in the Atlanta suburbs. She got A's and B's, was involved in school activities, had friends. She was quiet, respectful, never caused trouble. Her mother, Rebecca, had raised Madison mostly on her own. After divorcing Madison's father when Madison was 8, Rebecca worked hard as a high school math teacher, making sure Madison had everything she needed. They lived in a nice house in a safe neighborhood. Rebecca was strict but loving, setting boundaries while giving Madison freedom to grow. Madison's stepfather, Kevin, had been in her life for about 3 years. He and Rebecca had gotten married when Madison was 12. Kevin was a good guy, worked in IT, treated Rebecca well, tried to build a relationship with Madison. It wasn't always easy. Madison kept him at arm's length, but they coexisted peacefully enough. To Rebecca's colleagues, students, and neighbors, Madison seemed like a well-adjusted teenager, thriving under her mother's guidance. Rebecca would talk proudly about Madison's good grades and how responsible she was. But Madison was living a double life. It had started small, like it often does. Madison began vaping with friends at school in her freshman year. Just regular vapes at first, the flavored ones teenagers use because they think they're harmless. Then someone introduced marijuana vapes to the group. Madison tried it, liked how it made her feel, and started using regularly. To buy the vapes, Madison needed money. Her allowance wasn't enough, so she started stealing small amounts from Rebecca's purse. Then she progressed to selling her own possessions online, lying to her mom about where things had gone. At school, Madison developed a reputation among certain friend groups. She knew where to get vapes. She knew how to cheat on tests. She'd created an elaborate system using her phone and coordinating with other students. She was clever about it, never getting caught, maintaining her good GPA through deception rather than actual learning. But there was something darker going on beneath even that. Madison was cutting herself. The cutting had started about a year earlier, around the time she turned 14. Madison would later claim she felt numb, disconnected, overwhelmed by pressure to be perfect. The cutting was a way to feel something, to exert control, to cope with emotions she didn't know how to process. She hid the scars on her arms and thighs under long sleeves and pants. She told herself it wasn't a big deal, that she had it under control. But the cutting was getting more frequent, the wounds deeper. Madison also started having trouble sleeping. She'd lie awake at night consumed by anxiety about getting caught vaping, caught cheating, caught cutting, caught living this secret life that was growing more complicated every day. To manage all her secrets, Madison had multiple phones. One clean phone her mother knew about, and several burner phones she used to coordinate drug purchases, talk to friends about her real activities, and hide her digital trail. She became skilled at compartmentalizing. When she was around Rebecca and Kevin, she was the good daughter, helpful, sweet, agreeable. When she was with her secret friend group, she was someone else entirely, rebellious, reckless, living on the edge. This double life was exhausting, and it was unsustainable. Something was going to give. That something arrived on March 24, 2018, when Rebecca came home early from work. Rebecca had left her school around 2:30 p.m. She had a free period and decided to head home to catch up on some grading. When she got to the house around 3 p.m., she noticed Madison's bedroom door was slightly open. Rebecca walked in to put away some laundry and saw a cardboard box sitting on Madison's desk. It was partially open, and Rebecca could see what looked like vape pens inside. Her heart sank. She opened the box fully and found over a dozen vape pens, some of them clearly containing more than just nicotine based on the packaging and labels. She also found one of Madison's hidden phones tucked under some clothes in a drawer. Rebecca's mind was racing. How long had this been going on? What else had Madison been hiding? She knew Madison would be home from school in about 45 minutes. They needed to talk immediately. Rebecca called Kevin at work. "I found drugs in Madison's room," she said, her voice shaking. "Vape pens with marijuana, and a phone I've never seen before. I don't know what to do." Kevin told her to wait for him to get home. He'd leave work right away. But Rebecca said no. She needed to handle this now, mother to daughter. She'd confront Madison when she got home from school, and they'd deal with it as a family that evening. "Just be careful," Kevin said. "Don't let her talk her way out of this. She needs real consequences." Rebecca agreed. She took the box of vapes and put it on her bed in the master bedroom. Then she went through Madison's room more thoroughly, looking for other hidden items. She found cutting supplies hidden in a shoebox, Band-Aids and antiseptic that Madison had clearly been using to care for self-inflicted wounds. Rebecca was devastated. How had she missed this? What kind of pain was her daughter in? This wasn't just about drugs. This was about Madison needing serious help. At 3:40 p.m., Madison arrived home from school. She walked in through the front door, same as always, dropped her backpack in the kitchen, grabbed a snack from the pantry. Rebecca called out from the bedroom. "Madison, can you come here, please? We need to talk." Madison's stomach dropped. She recognized that tone. Something was wrong. As she walked down the hallway toward her mother's bedroom, her mind raced through possibilities. Had a teacher called about the cheating? Had someone told her mom about the vapes? Then she saw her bedroom door open, things disturbed. She'd been searching. Madison felt panic rising in her chest. She walked into the master bedroom and saw the box of vapes sitting on her mother's bed. Rebecca was standing there with her arms crossed, her face showing disappointment and hurt. "What is this?" Rebecca asked, her voice tight with emotion. "Madison, what is going on with you?" What happened next lasted less than 2 minutes, but it would change everything forever. When Rebecca confronted Madison about the vapes, Madison's first instinct was to lie. "They're not mine," Madison said. "I'm holding them for a friend." Rebecca wasn't having it. "Don't lie to me. I also found the phone, the cutting supplies. Madison, you need help. We're going to get you help." Madison felt the walls closing in. Years of carefully maintained secrets were crumbling in an instant. Her mother knew everything, or was about to find out everything. The cheating at school, the drugs, the cutting, all of it. And Madison couldn't let that happen. "I need to get something from my room," Madison said, her voice suddenly calm. Too calm. Rebecca, still processing the situation, nodded. "Okay, but then we're sitting down and talking about all of this. Your stepfather is coming home and—" Madison was already walking out of the room. She went directly to her bedroom closet where, hidden behind some boxes, was a gun. A .357 Magnum that belonged to Kevin. Madison had known where Kevin kept the combination to his gun safe. She'd had access to the weapon for months, though she'd never told anyone. Madison loaded the gun. Her hands were steady. She felt eerily detached from what she was about to do, like she was watching herself from outside her own body. She walked back down the hallway toward the master bedroom. But first, she had to pass through the kitchen, and that's where the security camera caught her. The kitchen had a camera pointed at the back door. Rebecca had installed it a year earlier for security. Madison knew about the camera. She knew its angle. As she walked through the kitchen, she deliberately kept the gun behind her back, positioning her body so the camera couldn't see what she was holding. If you watch that footage, and prosecutors would play it at trial, it's chilling. Madison looks completely calm. Her face shows no emotion. She's not crying, not shaking. She's just a teenage girl walking through her kitchen, except for what she's hiding behind her back. Madison entered the master bedroom where Rebecca was still standing by the bed, holding one of the vape pens, examining it. Rebecca looked up. "Madison, we're going to figure this out together. Whatever you're going through, we can—" Madison raised the gun and fired. The first shot hit Rebecca in the shoulder, spinning her around. Rebecca screamed, stumbled, tried to understand what was happening. Madison fired again and again. 3 shots total. Rebecca collapsed onto the floor near the bed, bleeding heavily, crying out for help that wouldn't come. Madison stood there for a moment, gun still in her hand, watching her mother die. Then she turned and walked back into the kitchen. The security camera captured everything that happened next, and it was this footage, more than anything else, that would seal Madison's fate. Madison walked into the kitchen and calmly placed the gun on the counter. Then she sat down on a stool at the kitchen island. Her 2 dogs, who'd been hiding during the gunshots, came over and sat near her feet, and Madison pulled out her phone and started texting, not 911, not Kevin, not anyone who could help. She was texting her friends. The security footage, which also captured audio, shows Madison sitting there calmly for several minutes. You can hear her mother's faint screams from the bedroom growing weaker, and Madison does nothing. Instead, she texts her best friend, "You need to come over right now." Her friend texts back, "Why, what's wrong?" Madison, "Just come, it's important." Her friend, "I'm at practice, what happened?" Madison, with her dying mother 20 feet away, "I did something." That text would later be used as evidence of Madison's state of mind. She wasn't panicking. She wasn't traumatized. She was calmly communicating, making plans, calculating her next move. After about 5 minutes during which Rebecca bled out in the bedroom, Madison sent another text, this time to her stepfather, Kevin. The text said, "I'm so sorry." Kevin, still at work, saw the text and immediately felt something was very wrong. He tried calling Madison, no answer. He tried calling Rebecca, no answer. He called 911 and asked for a welfare check at his house, explaining that his wife and stepdaughter weren't answering and he'd received a disturbing text. Police were dispatched to the Davis home at 4:03 p.m. When they arrived at 4:09 p.m., Madison answered the door. She appeared calm, composed. She told officers that her mother was in the bedroom and something bad happened. Officers entered the master bedroom and found Rebecca Davis dead on the floor, 3 gunshot wounds, a pool of blood around her body. The scene was exactly as Madison had left it. She hadn't tried to help, hadn't called for an ambulance, hadn't attempted CPR. Madison was immediately detained. As officers handcuffed her, she showed no emotion, no tears, no breakdown, just an eerie calm that disturbed even the seasoned officers. At the station, Madison was read her Miranda rights. She waived them and agreed to talk to detectives. What she told them would be the foundation of her defense, but it was a story that almost no one would believe. When detectives interrogated 15-year-old Madison Davis about killing her mother, she gave an explanation that was both bizarre and convenient. Madison claimed she didn't remember shooting her mother. She said that when her mother confronted her about the vapes, she blacked out due to extreme stress and mental illness. The next thing she remembered, she claimed, was sitting in the kitchen with the gun on the counter and her mother dead in the bedroom. "I don't remember getting the gun," Madison told detectives. "I don't remember walking through the kitchen or going back to the bedroom. It's like I wasn't even there, like someone else did it." She claimed she'd been having mental health issues for months: depression, dissociation, intrusive thoughts. She said the pressure of maintaining her perfect student image while dealing with her secret life had pushed her to a breaking point. Her attorney would later argue that Madison suffered from a dissociative disorder that caused her to black out during traumatic moments, that she genuinely had no memory of killing her mother. But prosecutors weren't buying it, and the evidence told a very different story. Remember that kitchen security footage? Investigators analyzed every second of it, bringing in experts to examine Madison's behavior and demeanor. The footage showed Madison walking through the kitchen with the gun hidden behind her back, a deliberate, calculated action. She knew where the camera was. She knew to hide the weapon. That wasn't someone in a dissociative state. That was someone thinking clearly and planning ahead. After the shooting, the footage showed Madison sitting calmly for over 5 minutes, texting on her phone, not seeking help for her mother. Her body language showed no signs of panic or confusion. She looked like someone taking a break, not someone who'd just experienced a traumatic blackout. Investigators also pulled all of Madison's text messages from the various phones they'd found. What they discovered was damning. In the weeks before the murder, Madison had been texting friends about her mother, complaints about Rebecca being too strict and always checking on her. But nothing that suggested violence was brewing, until you looked at her search history. Madison's phone records showed she'd been researching several disturbing topics in the days before the shooting: how to get away with murder, dissociative disorders, temporary insanity defense. Can minors go to adult prison? She'd been planning. Or at the very least, she'd been thinking about what might happen if she got caught doing something terrible. Detectives also discovered Madison's cutting behavior was more extensive than Rebecca had realized. Photos on her hidden phones showed dozens of self-inflicted wounds. Madison had been documenting her cutting, sharing the photos with certain online friends who encouraged the behavior. But here's what really caught investigators' attention. Madison had been documenting her secret life on social media platforms her mother didn't know about. On these accounts, she presented herself as troubled, edgy, someone living on the margins. She posted about doing drugs, about hating authority, about feeling trapped by her mother's expectations. One post from 2 weeks before the murder read, "Sometimes I wish I could just erase everything and start over." Another from 3 days before, "What would you do if the person stopping you from being yourself just disappeared?" Prosecutors would argue these posts showed premeditation, that Madison had been fantasizing about a life without her mother's rules and oversight. The forensic evidence was also straightforward. Gunshot residue on Madison's hands proved she'd fired the weapon. The trajectory of the bullets showed Rebecca had been facing Madison when shot. This wasn't a struggle or an accident. And the time between shots suggested deliberate aim, not panicked firing. Kevin, Madison's stepfather, was devastated. He'd lost his wife, and the girl he'd tried to be a father figure to had killed her. He told investigators that Madison had always been respectful to him but distant. He'd never seen signs of violence, but he'd sensed something was off about Madison in recent months. "She was too perfect," Kevin said. "Everything about her seemed calculated. Rehearsed, I mentioned it to Rebecca once, and she said I was being paranoid. That Madison was just a typical teenager trying to figure herself out." As the investigation progressed, more of Madison's double life came to light. Teachers at her school were shocked to learn she'd been cheating. Several classmates came forward admitting they'd participated in Madison's cheating schemes. Her clean reputation had been a carefully maintained illusion. Friends who knew about Madison's drug use and cutting told police they'd encouraged her to tell her mother to get help. But Madison always refused, saying her mother wouldn't understand and would ruin everything. The prosecution built a case arguing that when Rebecca discovered the vapes on March 24th, Madison knew her entire secret life was about to be exposed. The cheating would come out. The drugs, the cutting, the multiple phones, everything. Rather than face consequences and get help, Madison made a choice: eliminate the problem. Kill the person who was about to ruin her carefully constructed double life. The defense, meanwhile, prepared their mental illness argument. They brought in psychiatrists who examined Madison and diagnosed her with depression, anxiety, and a dissociative disorder. They argued she'd been crying out for help through her cutting and drug use, but no one had listened. They painted Rebecca as a well-meaning but oblivious mother who'd put too much academic pressure on Madison, creating the environment that led to the breakdown. But prosecutors had one more piece of evidence that would prove devastating to the defense: Madison's behavior immediately after the shooting, those text messages to friends. Investigators recovered the full conversations. Madison hadn't been asking for help or expressing horror at what she'd done. She'd been bragging. To one friend, she'd written, "I did it, I finally did it." When the friend asked what she meant, Madison responded, "I'm free." That wasn't someone experiencing a mental health crisis. That was someone celebrating. The trial of Madison Davis began in September 2019, 16 months after she killed her mother. Madison, now 17, sat in court looking like a typical teenager, her hair in a ponytail, wearing conservative clothes chosen by her defense team. She showed little emotion throughout the trial, occasionally crying when testimony became particularly difficult. The prosecution's case was methodical and damning. They played the kitchen security footage showing Madison hiding the gun and then sitting calmly while her mother died. They showed Madison's text messages and search history. They brought in forensic experts who explained how Rebecca's wounds proved the shooting wasn't an accident or a blackout moment. The defense brought their psychiatrist who testified about dissociative disorders and the pressure Madison had been under. They tried to paint her as a mentally ill child who'd snapped under unbearable stress. But the jury had seen the evidence. The calculated way Madison hid the gun from the camera, the calm texting afterward, the "I'm free" message, the internet searches about getting away with murder. After 3 days of deliberation, the jury returned with their verdict. Guilty of first-degree murder, Madison showed no reaction as the verdict was read. Kevin, sitting in the gallery, quietly wept. At sentencing, Kevin gave a victim impact statement that brought the courtroom to tears. He talked about Rebecca's dedication to her students, her love for Madison despite everything, her hope that she could help her daughter get back on track. Rebecca was trying to save Madison that day, Kevin said. She'd found the vapes, and instead of calling the police or kicking her out, she was going to get her help, get her into therapy, support her through it. And Madison killed her for it. Madison's defense asked for leniency based on her age. They argued that sentencing a teenager to life in prison denied her any chance at rehabilitation. The judge acknowledged Madison's youth, but said the calculated nature of the crime and her complete lack of remorse made a lengthy sentence necessary. "You had choices," the judge told Madison. "You could have accepted help. You could have admitted your mistakes. Instead, you chose to kill the person who loved you most." The case led to important conversations about teenage mental health, the pressure of maintaining perfect images, and the warning signs of children in crisis. Rebecca's colleagues started a foundation in her memory to provide mental health resources to students showing signs of self-harm or substance abuse. Kevin left the house where Rebecca had been killed and moved to a different state. He said he couldn't bear to live in the place where she'd died or where Madison had deceived them both for so long. The security footage from that day remains one of the most chilling pieces of evidence in recent true crime history. The image of Madison calmly hiding a gun behind her back, the audio of her mother's screams followed by Madison's casual texting. It's a stark reminder that evil can wear the face of an ordinary teenager. Madison Davis was convicted on the following charges: first-degree murder and possession of a firearm during the commission of a felony. She was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole for 40 years. She will be 55 years old before she's eligible for release. Rebecca Davis was 38 years old when she was murdered by her own daughter. She was a dedicated teacher who'd touched hundreds of students' lives. She was a loving wife to Kevin and a mother who tried her best to raise Madison right. She deserved so much better than what happened to her. Her last moments were spent trying to help her daughter, trying to get her the support she needed, and she paid for that love with her life. Rest in peace, Rebecca Davis. Your students remember you. Your husband honors your memory. And your story reminds us all that the people who love us most are sometimes the ones in the most danger. Not from strangers, but from those they're trying to save.